Hello, everybody. It's Friday, and the only reason I know that is because I had it on my calendar. I've been off all week, so I don't even know really what day it is. But welcome to PoliTarology. I'm here with my sister Cleo. And before we get started, I have just a couple of little things that I want to say. One is I really have to say, I'm sorry. I really got messed up about that whole anonymous thing. The guy, Miles Taylor, wrote a book about Anonymous, and not about the group Anonymous, but he called it Anonymous. And then they had the group Anonymous. And then I watched an interview with him and Nicole Wallace. And in that interview, she kept saying to everyone, well, so now we know that you're anonymous. And I was like, really? He's the group Anonymous? So I really got it wrong. And I just have to apologize. Egg all over my face. When I'm wrong, because I know that you guys very often are listening to the things I say, and that's kind of your news feed. So, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only reader you listen to, but you listen to us and you expect that we kind of have absorbed the news and made sense out of it. And in this case, I was really, really wrong. I mean, he did write a book called Anonymous, and he wasn't, showing his face up until just recently. And this book came out like over a year ago. So, I mean, he was anonymous, but he wasn't that anonymous. He wasn't that particular group anonymous. So, okay, mea culpa. That was me. That was my fault. The other thing that I wanted to kind of correct is that I have gotten quite a few super chats lately. And in the last two shows, especially where I got them, not just the last two shows, but the two shows where I got super chats, I failed to recognize those people. So I'm just going to go down the list really quick of all the super chats, because I really feel like people who do that should be recognized. And okay, mea culpa again. My sister told me I had to, so that's what my big sister came and said, you really have to acknowledge that. And I was like, well, yeah, but it's the chat, and I'm really bad at it. So that's my excuse. Now I'm going to be a big girl, and I'm going to say something about it. And I'm going to really, and you guys can get on me about this if you want to. But when people do stuff like this, I really should acknowledge it right in the moment. And I'm super bad at even looking at the chat. So that's one thing I cannot allow myself to be super bad about. So thank you so much, everybody who did the super chats. And here you are. Raquel Duarte, $5 on June 18th. Candace, it was $4.99 on June 18th. Dina DeMambro was $9.99 on June 18th. And then in the rest of June, Dina also did another super chat for me on June 13th. Rose Blue did a super chat on June 13th. Julie Martinson gave me one on June 6th. Rose Blue again on June 6th. Dina again on June 6th. Rose Blue again on June 6th. Julie Martinson again. Rose Blue again. And that takes us back to the whole month of June and just the last few days of May. So thank you so much. I really appreciate those. They really help a lot. And I really appreciate all of you who take time to, sit down and listen to me blathering on about politics and stuff. Because I'm not in politics, but I play someone who is on TV. So that's what I have to say about that. Okay, so again, my sister is coming to the rescue. She read an article that was super interesting, and she thought it would make good political fodder to read on. So I'm going to ask her to take it away and tell me about this question.
Okay. So actually, I'm not supposed to be on here today. I'm supposed to be backstage fielding your questions, which I will do that pretty quick here, because this is actually Colleen's solo PoliTarology. But I ran across this article. Actually, I found this on Facebook, and I copied it and stuff. And I had to read it like 5 or 6 different times to try to understand what it was, because it's all about how the election was stolen with the Musk and his satellites, and how the voting machines were tapped into, and it kind of it really came all out because of that thing that's going on in one county in New York, where they found no votes for Kamala Harris. And apparently there's a few other things like that going on. It's kind of hard to keep up. And it's hard to understand, because it's all real techie kind of stuff. But basically, what it is that just before the election, Musk sent up 265 low Earth orbit mini satellites, and they were each equipped with something called direct to cell or DTC technology, capable of processing, routing, and manipulating real time data, including voting data, through his satellite networks. Um, and this DTC things doesn't require routers, towers, or traditional or additional SIMS cards, and it connects directly from the satellite to any compatible device, including embedded modems and air-gapped voting systems. Don't know what air-gapped means. Smart UPS units and unsecured auxiliary hardware. So anything that they have set up that they want to connect to, they can. And there was another thing that said that I'm telling you, I don't totally understand this stuff because it is super techy, but they can actually connect to these different devices, and I'm going to say voting machines, through a power cord, and the power cord becomes the back door to that computer. Well, this is something, this is very inventive, something brand new. And actually, this technology that was developed for Musk should have taken 2 years, and it took them 10 months because they were really in a rush to get it on there for the 2024 election. And basically, that is how they did it. And as a matter of fact, you can't tell when you're looking at a computer that's been where they've connected to this computer from these satellites. There'll be no difference on the screen. Nothing will pop up. It's just totally invisible. So, I mean, it goes into a much more detail, but I think that the main thing is that these satellites were put up there just before the election to connect with these machines, and it works. The algorithms work in a way that is so I think, now I'm guessing because like I said, not that techy, but it goes in there and it changes things. So when it hits a certain number, like let's say Harris got a bunch of votes, but so did Trump. And if she got too many votes, it will just like change it. It would just like knock it out and put it in for the Republicans. I think from what I'm reading that they did the same thing with Democrats in all races, especially the electoral college states, as well as Nevada, and I think the other one was Texas or something. Not so much on the West Coast, because then it would have looked really goofy because everybody knows the West Coast is going to vote Democrat. But yeah, these things on the main electoral college things plus other critical states were totally manipulated. They know that. They know how they did it. I don't know what they're doing with all this information, but I just thought I'd put it out there the best I could. And, many of you have probably already seen this article or seen other information about this. I know it's out there, but it's really tricky to understand how they did it because it's a brand new technology that they've developed just in time for the election. So we do know for a fact now that Trump is an illegitimate president. He was not actually voted in. Kamala Harris would have won, just like we thought. She probably would have won by a landslide if things had not been corrupted. So, yeah, all swing states. Thank you. It's all swing states that they really screwed with the voting. But yeah, they can do that. They pulled that off with all these little satellites that they put up there. And I don't really know what that means, low level. I don't know, but I guess it just shoot them up there and make sure they can make the connection. And I got a feeling that this same type of technology was used in other countries to manipulate their votes. But that's coming more from a psychic level. What I'm talking to you right now is kind of what I read on the news and the information that I got. But there's like 3 pages worth of explaining how they did what they did. So when you see all those things on, I think of like Anonymous and some other places where they're showing maps with all these blue and red dots.
Mhm.
Well, that is, they're trying to figure out why didn't, how did this come out this way, but then the vote came out another way, and they see what they did. I don't know that they can go back in time and figure out which votes were actually for Kamala Harris and which votes were actually for Donald Trump. But they do know that there's something very illegal went on here, and it's totally incorrect. And something about this, it will change things. And I do see, like, August, September. I guess a lot of other people are thinking September is when you will start to hear more and more and more about this, and some changes will happen.
Wow. Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, it's clear, it's been clear to me, and you from the very beginning that this whole thing was rigged. Um, and it's one piece of the puzzle that will bring this administration down.
An artist Liz asks, do you see if they will prove it and remove this administration? I do. And it's not just this. There's some other things that that the orange one has done that it constitutes treason. Now, I think they're going to have a hard time connecting him directly to this Musk's thing, because all he's got to say is, I don't even know what you're talking about. Unless he's got his hands on it. Who knows? Who knows? But yes, this information is going to change a lot of things, along with some other stuff that's going on that Trump has done that is totally illegal and against the Constitution and against the United States of America. He is a traitor. So yes, this stuff is coming up, and it will change things. And yet, yes, as far as removed from this administration, you'd think so, right? I do. I've seen that all along. Whether it happens in my time of September, I don't know. That's coming up pretty quick. I've seen it like by the end of 2025 and early 2026. But it just depends on how many things they actually can collect for proof. But I think the thing with the treason is it's pretty much a done deal. I mean, it's been pretty obvious with the things that Trump says. And do you guys all remember when he said, "Hey, don't worry about voting next time because you won't have to vote"? What a thing to say. I mean, he's just openly admitting it, and Musk is openly admitting it, saying, "I spent $300 million to make sure Trump became president," and he did. So I guess $300 million partly went to those satellites that went up in the air. So yeah. I think a lot of the stuff was happening.
Well, it's interesting,
Oh, that's wait a minute. Just wait a moment. Sherry, because Sherry knows a lot about this stuff. Sherry, Voices from the Swamp. She says it wasn't just the voting machines, it was also the tabulating machines. There are several nonprofits who are working on this with forensic computer expert. I forgot the word tabulating machines. That's very important. So yeah, Sherry knows all about this stuff. Thank you, Sherry.
Where is that?
She's at 414 my time. Well, maybe it's different for you. 714.
Yeah. Hang on. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by some other ones as I go down.
Yeah, they did
Yeah,
say.
and I think though that and I've always felt this. I do think the information about the voting and the results of the votes is going to be shown to have been tampered with beyond a shadow of a doubt. I do think that that is going to be one more nail in the coffin for the Trump administration and for Trump himself and for Musk. But the thing is that there's going to be so many other things that are actually treasonous that they're going to begin to show even before they can definitively prove the voting thing. Because I've never felt that the voting thing would be what turned it around. If that could have happened, that would have happened before we ever got to January 20th. And it didn't happen. So I think that the way that they did the cheating, I know that they're looking at it. I know that forensic scientists are looking at how the things were done and trying to reconstruct what was done. But I just doubt that they're ever going to be able to reconstruct what the votes really should have been. They will be able to show that there was severe and extreme tampering and interference with it, and that votes were changed. That they can do.
Well, they've already done that. I
Yeah.
mean, they've already shown and proven that. And I agree. I've never seen that the actual voting thing is what brings down the Trump administration. There's other activities. It has to do with Project 2025 that's so illegal, and so authoritarian, and being the dictator and stuff right there. I mean, that is not America, that is not right, and that is clearly illegal. So there's a lot of other stuff going on, but this voting thing, it's pretty exciting that this has come out, that they actually know the steps that were taken and
Yeah.
understand. Plus, by the way, I did want to mention that guy from Project 2025, Peter Thiel, it's one of his companies that was working with Musk, as well as one of Musk's employees that set up his own company that contributed to the technology that could do this kind of thing. So there's a bunch of people out there that know, when you have that kind of technology going on and somebody's got to build all these satellites and program them and stuff, although a lot of people know what that was doing and what that was for. So they were in on it.
Oh,
So they,
yeah, they were all in on it. It was an open secret in that circle.
yeah.
I don't think everybody down to the last guy delivering, mail
Oh,
knew
no,
about
no.
it, but the certainly all the people around Peter
The
Thiel,
engineers that made it,
engineers, yeah, all those guys that were sent into Doge, you better believe that they knew about it and they were working on it.
right.
That's why they were the ones picked for Doge.
So
So
anyway, I just want to let people know that's exciting news. That's really
very,
progress.
yeah.
And this is the kind of stuff that we're going to be seeing throughout July. July
Mhm.
could be, just a real happening month as far as all the weirdness that comes out where,
Yes, it will be. It
yeah.
will be. Yeah.
So,
Well,
Colleen, do you want me to get out of here now and just start questions or what?
you can stay for a little while because this is good. This is really good.
Okay.
All right, so I threw some cards on this issue about the votes coming out, and specifically, will the group Anonymous, when they make their announcement on July 1st, will this further that endeavor? Will this further show proof or discuss, some more definitive results than we know about right now? Will it expose some other things? And I think what it's gonna expose is some betrayal. So I think it does go beyond the votes. I think the votes are the main thing that they're gonna be focusing on. They have pentacles all over this reading, but I think that they will also be revealing something that can legally be construed as treason or betrayal of the country's security. And that boy, they have been working really hard on it. So whatever they bring out on July 1st is going to be pretty substantial. But I got to tell you, it's almost all minor arcana. None of it is major arcana. So, again, this issue about the votes and the tampering, while very important, is not going to be what they go, aha, the votes were wrong. So, Trump, you're not a president anymore. I don't see that happening.
No,
But I
it's
do,
won't go
but,
that way.
but if you notice all the other stuff that has been going on with him, I mean, just every step that he takes every day is another illegal step, is another, another straw on the camel's back, it's it's building up. It's not going unnoticed. I mean, he's got over 200 lawsuits, and he's lost the majority of them. He didn't bring all of the lawsuits, but other people sued him for a lot of his illegal activities that he's been inflicting upon the American people. And he has lost so many of those cases. I mean, it isn't like a 60-40 split. It's like
Well, also
95% of them.
Colleen, hold on a minute. The courts are rigged as well. So the Supreme Court, the one that we bank on the most, they are always leaning towards not all every member of the court, not all the judges, but the people that we've heard about throughout the last couple of years. They are constantly leaning towards him. It's just like this thing with the sending the military into Los Angeles, and Gavin Newsom saying, hey, he's suing right now and he's fighting with them because they're saying, no, he can go ahead and do that. First they said, no, he can't. Then they said they can. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. I'm really watching what Gavin Newsom did and is doing, because he is the only one. He's really standing up for things. He's not being bullied, basically, or they're not coming after him in a way that he's going to say, oh well, okay, now I'll back down, which some other of the politicians have done that, because their families are being threatened, their job is being threatened. But the court system, right now, we can't really bank on them. They are doing things that just kind of help Trump. They're going to have to answer in the end also, like, what made you. I'm sure they've got it where they can support their decisions, but this thing about I didn't like, that's what Newsom is continually fighting for, is a governor is supposed to be the one that decides what, if military is needed in this state, and it's not needed. That's what he's saying. The Trump administration is saying, oh no, it is needed, because they're threatening, they're threatening our people who are trying to get rid of these terrible immigrants. Newsom doesn't agree with that. A lot of governors do not agree with that. So we'll just see. I guess something's supposed to be coming up next week about
It
this.
came out this morning that
Oh, really?
the appeals court, or yesterday, the appeals court said that they agreed with the president. So
Yeah.
now, they ruled late Thursday the president could retain control of the state's National Guard for the time being. So, of course, Trump said, big win in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But I'm sure that Gavin Newsom is, I don't know, Trump, let's see, argued Trump's decision to federal, so trying to see that the decision addresses only the. This is what the court said. We emphasize, however, that our decision addresses only the facts before us. And although we hold that the president likely has authority to federalize the National Guard, nothing in our decision addresses the nature of the activities in which the federalized National Guard may engage. That's very interesting, very carefully worded.
Yeah.
The panel said it disagreed with the administration that Trump's decision isn't reviewable by the courts, but the judges acknowledged they must be highly deferential. Affording the president that deference, we conclude, oh God, come on. There we go. Affording the president that deference, we conclude that it is likely that the president lawfully exercised his statutory authority. Okay, responding to the Thursday night ruling, Newsom said, "This fight doesn't end here." The court rightly rejected Trump's claim that he can do whatever he wants with the National Guard and not have to explain himself to a court. The president is not a king and is not above the law. We will press forward with our challenge to President Trump's authoritarian use of U.S. military soldiers against citizens. Let me see here. Okay, yada yada yada. So I think he's going to press it. I think he's going to press it to the Supreme Court.
Of course he will, because that's where his friends are at, and those were the people.
No. Newsom will press it.
Oh, Newsom, yeah. Well, he doesn't have any choice. It is the law, but now they'll come down to: is this a threat to national security? That I think something like that,
Yeah.
And it's not.
Say, no, it's not. So he'll lose.
Well, will the Supreme Court say that, or will they say, well, maybe it is?
I think, well, let's read on that. If the Supreme Court takes this case, will they rule for Newsom? Will they push back on Trump?
I don't trust them. I just don't trust them. And it's terrible to say that about the Supreme Court, because it is the Supreme Court. It covers the whole damn country, and we should be able to rely on them to do what is right. And then Trump just, he's got all his lawyers working on this, and they just bring up all these different angles. And that's one thing that's crazy about the law anyway. I mean, there's so many variables that they can claim. They nitpick. And so, yeah, if this comes as a threat to the country, then
the National Guard is still there. Are the Marines still there?
I think everybody's still there.
Can someone in the chat let us know? And Rose Blue, I don't understand what you're talking about. The court case filed about Posse Comitatus Act still going forward. Is that the one that was just heard by the Ninth Circuit? I don't know. Oh God, there's so many coming in late.
Let's see. Then she says, Rose Blue. Oh boy, Rose is so knowledgeable.
Judge Breyer in California. Yeah, Breyer in his initial ruling ruled the Guard deployment was illegal and both violated the 10th Amendment, which defines power between federal and state governments, and exceeded Trump's statutory authority. Yeah, and Breyer wrote, the protests in Los Angeles fall far short of rebellion. Individuals' right to protest the government is one of the fundamental rights protected by the First Amendment, and just because some stray bad actors go too far does not wipe out that right for everyone. Good. Okay. So
Rose Blue, you know too damn much. She just
but how could Judge Breyer file? I don't understand. It went to the Ninth Circuit. So is this a new case? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it on Legal AF today. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, it started out with the court that said, no, Trump can't do that.
Yeah.
Then it was appealed. Right. The appeals court says, well, no, maybe we're not sure, but we're going to say he can. Now it sounds like, I don't know if they're filing it again.
Yeah, but if they file again, it would just go to the Supreme Court. No, the Ninth Circuit.
Maybe they're arguing with the appellate court.
The Ninth Circuit is the federal court. So that is where you appeal. And if you don't get, if you don't have satisfaction there, I believe you go to the Supreme Court. Anyway, I'm not understanding.
So Rose says that it's filing into a separate case, but
okay.
No wonder we're confused. God, we're confused about everything this fool does. Okay, here, this is another one. Patrick says there's two cases. The one.
Oh, okay. I just read about it. The Posse Comitatus Act bars federal troops from participating in civilian law enforcement. Okay, so somebody filed a Posse Comitatus lawsuit.
Yeah, and Patrick says there's two cases.
Yeah, the second Posse Comitatus.
One's the National Guard and one's the military.
Thank you, Patrick. That's what I was not understanding because I didn't see Legal AF today, so I didn't know about this case. Okay, so here's what I got. Ultimately, Gavin Newsom is going to have satisfaction about these, but he has a fight on his hands. He has a lot of work to do. Now, does anybody know, was Gavin Newsom involved with that Posse Comitatus Act lawsuit that was just filed? Was that him? Do you see in the comments?
I don't know. Just that it's two different cases. Let's see.
No, we already know that. We already know that the Ninth Circuit sided with Trump. We already know that.
Okay.
This is the other case. I just want to know who filed it. Anyway,
I think anything to do with this is Gavin Newsom. I mean, he's busy doing all he can do, and as soon as they said that, he is saying that goes against the law because there is not. This is not as it doesn't affect the security of the United States.
Right. Okay. Yes. We get that. Okay. So here's what my cards are saying is that he has a big fight on his hands. He has a ways to go. There will be a little delay here. God, I hope those troops don't have to just sit there on their asses in Los Angeles this whole time. Because they don't have like porta potties. They don't have beds. They don't have food. They don't have water. They're just depending on the kindness of strangers to be fed and stuff. Where are they taking a shower, those guys? They've been there over a week by now. So this is really terrible. And I just want to say, Cindy L., thank you very much for your super sticker. I really appreciate it. But for Gavin Newsom, this can't go fast enough. And it definitely is not going to go fast enough for him. He's really going to be frustrated, but he's going to hang in there. And it will ultimately be decided in their favor. It will ultimately be decided in their favor. And, they're still in California. I cannot believe that. 200 Marines and 4,000 National Guard. That is just fucking-ridiculous. I mean, but the last card that I got for Gavin Newsom is the Nine of Cups. I mean, he gets a lot there. And he hopes that it doesn't, he wants things to happen the way they should happen behind the scenes. He does not want this to be a big news item. He just wants to have Trump stop, jerking his chain. I mean, it's just.
Well, and stop harassing the immigrants. And I mean, they're taking all the immigrants out of California. Those people are the people that are giving us food. They're working in the field. They're doing so many things. And he is, Gavin Newsom is so sad of what they are doing to these people because they're not people that came in and they're not illegal as far as, I don't know, they might not be documented, but they're doing work that they've been doing for years and years and years. And it's just, and they're breaking up families. They're they're just making a mess out of things. And he, in all of California, as far as I can tell, is so glad that they have these people to do what has to be done so we can have, food on the table.
And I feel that Gavin Newsom is feeling the weight of the nation on his shoulders because Dumpy is definitely going to be trying this in every other blue state that he can. I mean, he's already started bad mouthing Tim Walz after Tim Walz had 3 of his, people in his state houses shot at and 1 killed as a result. I mean, and Trump didn't even call with a note of condolence about any of it. I mean, he's really being nasty. Talk about nasty. He's always saying it's nasty. He's the one who's really nasty and ill-informed, and we could go on and on and on.
Well,
But
yeah, he is targeting all the Democratic states, all of us.
yeah,
And Washington is definitely, that's where I'm from, is definitely a Democratic state.
New
And
Jersey, where I'm from, we're very Democratic state.
and we're having a really hard time right now because it's just throwing our whole state budget off. And so our new governor is trying to, he's trying to get balance going here. But he is the one, I just loved it that I saw him. I mean, it was quite a while back where he just said, the president he said, come on, the president is doing this just for a tax break to the people that can afford to pay taxes. And it's just, it's hurting everybody. It's really hurting, people that don't have that much money, people on Medicaid, it's hurting people on Medicare, Medicaid, and food stamps. They're threatening all of those things. And so we don't have enough money in Washington state to cover all that because it's always been at least half federally funded. And now it's not. And so we don't, and it was like a surprise, like it wasn't even discussed. Just all of a sudden you're out, you're not going to get any funding. All of our programs that will help underprivileged or, these different programs. However, I did hear one or two of those programs did finally, all of a sudden they were getting the funding again. So that's the other thing with Trump is one day he says one thing, he says he's taking something away or he's increasing the tariffs, whatever he's doing. And then the next day it changes. And then the next day it changes again. And next day it changes. It's constant chaos. So everybody's having a hard time keeping up. But this thing with California and Newsom, yeah, I mean, what in the hell? We're supposed to, that's the other thing. He claims he's doing all this stuff because it's what we want. And, I guess we have to spend a lot of money to pick up all these people, although it makes no sense. And it's just so un-American and it's so inhumane. It's the inhumanity of this whole thing that's really driving Newsom nuts and keeping him pushing forward. He's not afraid of Trump. He's not afraid of what can happen because he sees not only the law but the Constitution, and that is what he's banking on. Now, if the Supreme Court goes against that, because Trump's team has come up with some lame, out of left field kind of rule, this kind of crap keeps happening. So we'll just see. I don't know. I've got good feelings about Newsom. I think he is just going to keep forging ahead. And although it may be one step forward, two steps back because of the legal ramifications, I see that Newsom he's going to hang in there and he's going to really fight for it.
Yep, he is. Here's what I'm reading on. With all the money that it's costing these states, especially for California, 32 million in 10 days. That's a big chunk, even for the fourth largest economy in the world. That's why Newsom can be brave. He's sitting on the fourth largest economy in the world. So yeah, principle, boom, money, like he's no fool in that way. And so he's an interesting political animal because he does a lot of liberal actions. He's really good for the environment. He really encourages, he's been good for the middle class. He's been good for California's overall economy. He's been good for the immigrants. He's been good for just people's life in general, although their insurance is going up from natural disasters. And that's been a real hardship for a lot of people. And he does take money from the big oil companies. But I was talking to Sybil Harmony yesterday, and she was saying, you have to kind of balance it, because had he not done that, then what would the lashback be? If he hadn't of, you know, not all the way gone along with the oil companies, but some of those oil companies also subsidize a lot of the clean energy things that Newsom has done. So it's really it's complicated. It's a really interesting relationship. So people have also posed the idea that maybe California will stop paying federal income tax, or federal taxes in general. Maybe they'll just stop giving the federal government their money. And if they stop, think about how big they are.
Wow, I hadn't heard this one yet.
If they stop,
That's a great idea.
yeah, if they do it, then how long would it be before some other blue states did it, who are getting screwed, like Washington, like New Jersey, right? Because those red states, they're the ones who need all the subsidies and all the help that the federal government gives. So when they don't have that money, use the money that you would have paid in taxes instead. Then your own people are taken care of. And that will really get the message across that, nobody's supporting Dumpy.
Well, and if you've noticed, every governor I've ever heard talk about this, including Waltz and Newsom, they are for the people of their state. I mean, they are governors for that state, and they are for the people. And if something like this came up, oh, wow, that would just really be something if they just said, okay, fine, you're not going to give us anything, neither are we're not going to give anything back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would that be some kind of a civil war? That would be
Well, it's kind of the first step of seceding from the Union.
right. But I don't really see that happening in the long run.
Not in the long run, but as a means to an end, to get rid of the, horrible, imitation of Versailles in the Oval Office. That would be great. But I think, if you don't.
Hopefully it's not going to go that far, and he won't be in there long enough to have that actually happen. I
Well,
think some of the things that are going to come up in the legal arenas are going to be saying, wait a minute, look what Trump's actually done. And they might be bringing that forward instead of constantly focusing on the problem at hand, which is what Trump wants you to do. Divert your attention to whatever crazy thing is happening. What if they finally turn around and go, wait a minute, it's time that we call it what it is. He's doing a lot of illegal things. He's profiting from his presidency. Hey, can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. He is, all this money that's supposedly coming in for tariffs. Where is it? Where did it go? I mean, if they start questioning what he is actually doing, then I think maybe that's how this escalates, where they start to look at him instead of, well, and the whole Republican Party actually, because it takes a village to do what he's doing, and he's got a lot of support from all these Republicans because they're in just as much trouble. Just like this thing with the voting. I mean, if these things start to come out and look more and more treasonous, and if they start saying, okay, now we want you to explain why you did this, instead of, he always attacks everybody. If you don't do what I want you to do, you're in trouble. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a matter of time. And since I do feel like something is definitely coming up in July, it's something is definitely coming up in September. I kind of feel like maybe there won't be enough time for him to do before he's removed. There won't be enough time. He could end up being removed before he has a chance to ruin every other state. And before it comes to a time where the state says, no, we're not going to give you money because you won't give us money, then that would definitely be one way to get things rolling, though, to get things moving in the right direction, because that would be great, And
Because that's another revolution in and of itself, not just people protesting, but now people not paying. And then the government really kind of comes to a halt but the thing is we all just paid our individual taxes, right? We all just paid them. So they have that money, but I'm sure that there's, the quarterly business taxes and stuff from small businesses, those all go in. And I don't know if there's other things that the state actually pays to the government in the form of taxes. I don't know how it all works, but I just think it's a natural consequence of him pulling back money from the states and not giving them. Is it 2 trillion from California alone? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
But anyway, so for Gavin's cards here, he is sitting in a very good position, and he definitely does not like what Dumpy is offering. He also feels that he is in the catbird seat. He can call the tune except for the Supreme Court. He does not really know how the Supreme Court would rule if these cases went to the Supreme Court. So
and I think he's just going to keep fighting that. He's just
he is. But at a certain point, see, the thing is the Supreme Court's going on vacation now.
For how long?
Till October.
Oh no.
Yeah. So they do have their emergency things that they keep in place, but that's just it. So 4 hours ago, judge asks troops in Los Angeles if they're violating Posse Comitatus Act 4 hours ago. Oh, very interesting. California's challenge of the Trump administration's military deployment in Los Angeles returned to a federal courtroom in San Francisco on Friday for a hearing after an appeals court handed down President Donald Trump a key procedural win. Judge Breyer put off issuing any additional rulings and instead asked for briefings from both sides by noon Monday on whether the Posse Comitatus Act, which prohibits troops from conducting civilian law enforcement on U.S. soil, is being violated in Los Angeles. Okay.
And who's okay? Let's say that it is.
It is Gavin Newsom who's pressing this. So.
Okay.
Oh, and J.D. Vance, a Marine veteran, traveled to Los Angeles on Friday and met with troops, including U.S. Marines who've been deployed to protect federal buildings. According to Vance, the court determined Trump's determination to send in federal troops was legitimate, and he will do it again if necessary. That's not true. Oh, God. Can somebody just arrest him for having bad eyeliner? I mean... Just arrest him. Anyway, so I'll finally get through this reading on Gavin. So Gavin is going to he's going to pull in some real heavy hitters legally so that he can pursue this case. He's going to pull out all the stops, and he is not afraid of being smeared, threatened, his reputation tarnished by Trump. He is not afraid of any of that. In fact, this whole experience is kind of liberating him to just go all out in his defense of California and his, attack on Trump. So for those two, this is a kind of war. So very interesting.
And I feel the same about Newsom. I just, for one thing, he's really the vibe, the energy I get from him is just, he's really a good person, and he's very logical, and he's also sensitive to what his people in California are going through. I mean, he just hates it. And so he will do whatever he can. And because you're right, because California is so huge, um, it is like its own little country. So, um, yeah, yeah, I think I'm kind of banking on him. I'm also getting a little hint that maybe, and maybe you won't hear about it, but that Kamala Harris doesn't mind helping if if Gavin Newsom has some questions about how to handle this, that he might go to her.
Yeah, because he's not an attorney. He's not. He's just a really good politician.
Yeah, and she I feel like she's she's riled up right now because she is talking about California as well. It's it's her state as well. She's been the attorney general, and if she doesn't end up being president, she could end up being governor for California in the end. So, but no, I do see that. Yeah, she's right in. I think, I think they're giving each other a phone call and saying, what the hell? And she's probably giving him some ideas on what to do. Plus, yeah, I'm sure he's got a complete team of
Oh yeah.
really high level attorneys and stuff in on this.
Wow, her cards. I'm pulling some cards on her too. Yeah, she is. Yeah, she wants to take care of her homeland. She wants to take care of California and and protect them, but she's very upset. She sees that this is a hideous situation, and there's people feel like their hands are tied, but they're not. Um, and she knows deep down that California is doing very well. She's doing very well. That this will not. It will take more than this to destroy everything that's very cool and harmonious and copacetic in California. I mean, California is not going to just change overnight because of this stupid thing with Dumpy. In the past, Ace of Pentacles, it is the richest state in the union and the fourth largest economy in the world, and a thriving economy, a very, very healthy economy. So, what's going on above? We're not meant to know. It's behind the scenes. It's all very, very clandestine, very secret. But she has been really thinking about her choices. She's been really, really thinking about the election and what she should do. And this incident is kind of waking things up in her. This incident with California and Gavin Newsom is kind of lighting a fire in her soul for doing the things that she really believes in, fighting for people, we the people, right? She doesn't want to see Dumpy succeed in this. She does want to make sure that justice prevails, and she will be helping Gavin Newsom in this regard. Um, she doesn't want to be out in the front lines yet. She doesn't want to have too much of a spotlight on herself. She wants to make sure that she still kind of stays in the background because the final card is the Two of Wands. I think, we've heard from a couple of readers that she just doesn't want the presidency, even if it was handed to her now. That she's just, she's sour on it. She's decided no, she's going to do something else with her life, blah, blah, blah. But I think that this incident and this time frame, because the energy is moving so quickly right now, and so much energy is so volatile, frankly. I think this is going to move her back towards, oh no, I got to be in it. I got to be the one there, standing there. So I think this is going to bring her back to the idea that no, her rightful place is to be at the head of government.
Well, and I still think, and this is what I said before about Kamala, is that this thing about her not being interested in the presidency anymore is she just wants people not to even think about her doing that because she's afraid, not afraid, but she doesn't want to put a spotlight on herself only because of Trump. If it was anybody else, we'd be hearing a totally different story out of her. But, Trump will go after people, and he'll go after her family,
Her
her
family,
friends,
her husband.
Yeah, her husband, well, he's already done that.
Already done that. Yeah.
And so, yeah, so she wants to keep a low profile that way. And
Yeah.
she doesn't want to be the one to end up exposing him because that would just be too weird. It'll be that he gets exposed, he gets removed, and then they're going to start talking about this decertification and stuff like that. But that's way down the road. And
Yep.
and even after Trump is removed, it will be the government will be controlled by a group of people, not a president at first. Or
Mhm.
maybe they'll assign somebody, and it
It'll
won't
be
be
the panel. It'll be a panel. It'll be
yeah,
like,
a panel of
a
people.
panel of people. It'll be, a few really smart, probably former presidents, former vice presidents and stuff at the top. And then they'll have a panel of, another group of people who will manage probably hundreds of people who will help them with the beginnings of putting things back in order, like USAID for one, you know. They'd have ICE arrest her, etc.
They
Yeah,
would.
they would. Yeah.
That's the kind of stupid,
They
thing
try to send her back to India, even though she's never lived in India. But I'd like to do a throw on what does the month of July have in store for the Trump administration? 'Cause
wow.
people,
I might even get some cards out for this.
yeah, because people keep asking, when will this be over? What's going to happen? Is this going to kick him out? Blah blah blah. And I've explained, and I will explain. I will continue to explain so that people understand it. It is not going to be like flipping a light switch. It's going to
Right.
be in stages. Just as they took stages to take over the government, we will take stages to take over them, and then they will not take over the American people, but they will take over the levers of government so that they can put things right again. But I want to see in the month of July what is going to really happen to, we'll just call them Dumpy and his friends. The Dumpy House Club. That's what we're going to call them. DUM.
Oh. Now, for anybody that's ever paid attention to me, I don't usually do cards. Well, I do a little bit. I like it better for personal readings, but on political stuff, I don't usually do it because it comes out just as chaotic as what we're what we're dealing with every day. But I'll give it a shot. I will give it a shot.
I like my first card.
All right. Well, what do you got going on there, Colleen?
All right. Love the last card too. Okay, so the first two cards are the Wheel of Fortune. Whoops. The Wheel of Fortune and the Sun card, crossed by the Sun card. So I take that to mean that there will be some real changes in fortune for them collectively, and that it's going to reveal an awful lot. A lot of truths are going to be revealed in July. So could this be court cases? Maybe. Could this be people starting to not just acquiesce and go along with what he wants, or not following orders? Yeah, it could be that. And then I have the Four of Swords. And the Four of Swords in most decks is the guy sitting on what looks like a sarcophagus, and it's in front of a church window, so it looks like it's a funeral or something. But in this deck, it shows these guys out in the desert sitting with a rug in front of them with the 4 swords on it. So I take this to mean the Israel-Iran conflict, because that's that part of the world. So I don't, and 4s are very stable. So I don't think he's going to do shit when it comes to Iran or Israel. I don't think he's ever going to do anything. And you know he's not going to do anything because he already said, "Oh yeah, I'll make my decision in 2 weeks." That's a sure kiss of death. That means that no action is going to be taken with that. And because he's seen, I think, to be so weak, I think that's what leads to a lot of this stuff. And once new things, new revelations start coming out, no bueno for him, really bad for him. I got the Princess of Cups in the back in the past. Now this, if I was just doing a reading on Trump, I would just say this is Ivanka. She's a Scorpio. But who knows who it is? There could be, any number of people. But I don't think any of those other women that are around him, like Bondi, Gabbard, and Gnome, I don't think any of them are water signs. So I could be wrong. I don't know. I can't keep them all in my head because I can't honestly tell them apart. Okay. They all look the same. What crowns it is the Prince of Swords, which to me means a prosecutor, a lawyer, a judge, somebody in the legal profession who is going to come down with some harsh rulings that they don't like. But what comes out in the future is the 10 of Pentacles. So is he going to be paying some money? Is the administration going to be found out to be spending too much money? Like ICE is $1 billion over budget. I'm sure all of those other organizations are all those other agencies that are doing illegal stuff are also over budget. So, because they think the money grows on crypto trees. What are they hoping for? They're hoping that things will just kind of go along the way they're going along. But really, there's going to be a lot going on in the background that they don't know about. And they are going to be dealing with some things with money that they have handled badly. So I think the crypto thing is really going to start blowing up in their faces. But the final outcome is that they're running for the hills. Look at that. Would you want to be them? I mean, having all those swords coming down on your head? I don't think so. That looks pretty bad to me. That's their final outcome for the administration. That's what I got. Not
Well,
good.
as far as looking into the month of July,
Mhm.
first of all, I'm getting some women involved that I don't know if they're judges or if they're prosecutors or who they are. I just don't know who they are. But they're higher ups. They are people that have something. They have some power. But
Mhm.
in the end of the whole month of July, there is going to be so much. It's going to be a lot of work underneath, just like you were saying, behind the scenes, where it's not real obvious to us, but there are people just really working their butts off right now
Mhm.
to try to bring things back upright, try to get things back in balance just a little bit. But in order to do that, they're going to have to take some people out. And that is where where Trump all of a sudden is going to start feeling a little bit squeezed. Before he's had his feelings hurt because he just wasn't getting the respect he wanted, just like when he went to the G7 thing. He
Mhm.
just, he expects people to bow down to him and understand that he is the voice that controls the country. And he has been. I feel in July that's going to take a big hit. That's
Mhm.
going to turn around a little bit. But I wish I knew who these women were that are. It's the Queen of Swords, and I don't know who she is, but she's like the one cracking the whip. She's like the one bringing up some details that gets everybody moving in the right direction.
Mhm.
But a lot of work, a lot of chaos that we won't necessarily. I think we will hear bits and pieces, but they're coming after Trump. They're coming after him this month in July.
Yeah, they really are. And at the end of this month, so in a few days, Uranus will begin to change signs into Gemini. I'm just going to pull up an ephemeris here so I can tell you the date. And when it does, it's going to be hitting some planets in Trump's chart that are very vulnerable, actually. I'll pull this up really quick here. Amazon, you don't have the ephemeris I want. Get out of there. Okay, so June. So it actually changes signs the first week in July, July 8th, but you'll begin to feel it this last week of June. And let me just, did I pull up his chart already? Did I have anything about his chart? DJ2. Okay. So I'm just going to read you this little blip that I have about him that I wrote. So for Donald Trump, since he just celebrated his birthday, that was June 14th, you'd think he'd be in a good mood, but you would be wrong. He's not. Mars just crossed his natal Mars, which is a Mars return, which starts a 2-year cycle of activity, conjunct his ascendant. So this Mars return is very important for him because your ascendant is very important. So he's feeling prickly and hot-headed. So Mars in Leo is a hot Mars. It's not known for an even temper, and we know that he has a bad temper. He's crotchety and mean at the present. Now Neptune and Saturn are approaching his Eris, which is a centaur planet, a very, very small planet, causing a confusing set of signals pertaining to his image on the world stage. And we know, and we see this with him. He wants to be the peacemaker. Then he threatens to assassinate the head of Iran, the guy who's the top guy in Iran, the imam, or is it imam? No, he's somebody will tell me in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm on a different plane right now. But anyway, Venus is in his 10th house. That's money, right? So he feels like he wants all this, adulation and praise and money. And he got his parades, and he's president for now, and he's making a lot of money. So that's the Venus there. But the method of his cash flow is not sound. And this will be, shown shortly. That's what the cards are saying, that it's going to be exposed. His transiting North Node, that's his mission in life. That's his legacy, what he's trying to accomplish, is squaring the Sun Uranus configuration in his 11th house. So he was born on an eclipse with the Sun right next to Uranus and also right next to the North Node in the 11th house for friends, hopes, groups, and wishes. And so now the real North Node is coming to connect to that, which triggers it. And this means that he's about to be removed from certain family and friends. Now, he's already pretty removed from most of his family. He doesn't have his sons or daughters around him anymore, but he is being haunted by thoughts of his mother. He's got a lot of stuff happening in his 12th house, and he's literally being haunted. And also other women in his life who have passed on from his family and close circle. So I'd imagine Jeffrey Epstein is haunting him, as well as Virginia Jeffrey. Probably Ivana, his first wife, and his mother, definitely. Now, he's also got Pluto transiting his 7th house, which, by the way, it'll be there for 20 years. And all of his real relationships and his relationships with allies, like, foreign officials, but also open enemies, are being transformed. Open enemies. Let's talk Zelensky. Let's talk Newsom, and so that's a slow process. Now, almost all of the transiting planets are in the upper portion of his chart, which means that things are quite public for him and forever, however long he has left on the earth. Very, very public. So that's what I have about Donald Trump. And this Uranus, when it comes into his chart, is going to touch off some really sensitive stuff for him. So he's going to kind of feel like he's in a room full of firecrackers being lit all over the room. I mean, it's just not going to be comfortable for him. It's not going to be pleasant for him. So,
Well, and I want to thank the chatters for reminding me about all the protests that are coming up in July.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And actually, that went right along with what I was reading about, but I'd forgotten about that. And so anyway, thank you. You just got my you got my reading going again. Yes, these protests are going to make a big difference. And it's the last one, we had over 5 million people across the country protesting. They're not pleased with Trump. They don't like what's going on, and they're doing peaceful protests. I mean, thank you to those 5 million people, well, over 5 million people in the country.
Yeah, they're saying now closer to 13 million.
Wow.
The Parks Department are estimating 13 million.
Wow. And they're being peaceful about it. They're being logical. They're just saying, hey, no, we're not going there. This is ridiculous. And so these protests coming up in July, this is going to make a huge, big difference. And yeah, I mean,
Huge.
that's the biggest protest against a president in American history. Yay, Yahoo! This is it's the people. That's who I'm seeing in these cards. And I kept thinking, who in the hell are all these people? It is the people of the United States of America that are coming together and saying, hey, we're not putting up with this. You can't threaten all of us. You can't threaten all of our families. You can't come after us singularly. You're going after all our, the people that represent us, our senators, our congressmen. You're going after them, and you're going, thinking that you're going to change something that way. These people that are in the protest are saying, no, you're not going to, and we're not going to stand for this. And we don't like the way you're treating the immigrants. Did we want to kind of change things with the immigrants? Yes, everybody did. It was out of control, apparently. I don't know. I thought Joe Biden was getting it in control, but nobody's, Trump's just bad mouthing him. But, to do what he's doing is so un-American, and people agree with that. And these protests are going to make a big, big difference. But I also see underneath it all, within the administration, they're going this July, they are going to be struggling. This is really going to be pivotal this month that's coming up. I mean, there is so many things going on. And I just love it that the people of this country have just said, no, just no. And we don't need to bring out guns. We don't need to even be yelling at anybody. We just want you to listen, and we got our signs, and we are congregating. We're uniting. We are uniting. It's just a really beautiful thing, and it's just going to keep happening. So July is going to be something to watch for. And even in June, what would you say, 13 million now? I mean, that was amazing. And it came at just the perfect time when his little parade didn't pan out. And he is so pissed off about that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's like, it's not about my birthday. It's about the military. Well, the people aren't saying that we don't appreciate the military. We absolutely do. This is a president who has put down military people. He's not helping them at all. The veterans are getting really, really pissed off. They're losing benefits. They're not being taken care of the way they're supposed to be. So yeah, he's gonna have a fight on his hands that doesn't just come from people like Gavin Newsom. It comes from the public. It comes from the citizens of the United States, especially the veterans. They're like, hey, hold on, buddy. We've given our lives for this, and now you're telling us something entirely different.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the Marines that were asked to go into Los Angeles, I believe there were quite a few who refused to go.
That's really?
That's why they only have a couple hundred. Don't you remember Trump saying, yeah, we're going to have 4,000 Marines?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, thousands and thousands of
thousands. And he has a couple
National Guard and the Marines, and
the National Guard, okay, but I mean, for that anyway, we could, litigate the whole thing about why they even had that many National Guard, but we all know he's an effing idiot. He made, bold statements that were just stupid. And thank you to everybody in the chat who told me it's the Ayatollah Khomeini. I was in the zone, I couldn't think of his title. But there was one other thing I wanted to read on. Do we need to read about I don't think he'll do anything with Iran. I think I mean the word that comes to mind when I'm thinking of Dumpy is let's see, impotent.
Yeah, because he uses these things just to get an emotional response out of the American public.
Yep.
So he'll do whatever works out easiest for him.
Yep. And I don't think that in our protests, I don't think that anybody is expecting or hoping that he will listen to us. Because we just don't want him there anymore. We just want him gone because he thinks he's a king and we don't want a king. So.
Well, and for him to leave the G7 summit because there's a new war going on.
Oh, that's what I wanted to read about. Yeah, let's read about that.
And it made no sense that he wanted to leave and when he came back, it wasn't critical that he was here for some decision. As a matter of fact, that's when he said it would be 2 weeks. And then he also says stuff like, you just never know what I'll do. You don't know what I'll do. Nobody knows what I'll do. I'm thinking, yeah, we know we don't know.
Here's what I think. Here's what I think. I think he got there. I think he didn't like his reception. It was said that they weren't there directly to meet him at the plane when he came, but they didn't meet a lot of them. Once people got there, then they started, meeting and going off and chatting and stuff. But he got there. He was upset that, yeah, I agree, Innocent Potato. That's exactly what I said. He won't. It's inaction. It's his call to inaction when he says 2 weeks, nothing. Now, if he says that he thinks you're a terrific person and you work for him and he thinks you're doing a great job, that's the kiss of death. Then you'll be fired within 72 hours. But to go back to the G7, yeah, he was not happy about the way he was greeted. And then they allowed him to go off and make some sort of opening remarks on camera, and he was just ridiculous. An embarrassment. So Carney shut him down. But what he was saying in that moment of embarrassment, I think, was kind of a coded message. Do you remember when he said, Russia, if you're listening, if you can find those whatever 30 million emails or whatever, I would, I know you would, the journalists would love you, or we would love you, or somebody would love you.
You're talking about Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yes. When he made that message, that was literally an overt message to Russia and the hackers, right? Because he said, Russia, if you're listening. I think that this little spiel that he made at the G7 was also a message to somebody. I think it was to two somebodies. I think it was a message to Putin to say, see, I still love you. Please come back and be my hubby. And I think it was a message to Netanyahu. See, I really love Putin. I can't be your boyfriend because I'm married to Putin.
Oh, God, you're probably right. You're probably right.
That's how he does things.
Yeah.
That's how he does things. And then when he left, of course he was going to leave because he was embarrassed because he knew he was a friggin' idiot. And plus he didn't want them to see all the shit that was going on with him, his catheter, his diaper, his hair's all screwed up, his skin looks weird. He has that thing going on his hand. I mean, what? I can't even believe he went to those, the funeral and the kind of stuff. I can't even believe that he went to those things because he's such a mess. Why would he want to be around people? Because they can see what a mess he is. Anyway, that's what I think. But I think at the G7, then once he left, Zelensky came and they had meetings with Zelensky. So let's see if, and this will be my last question because it's 1 hour 20 already. But I want to know what came out about Zelensky, or what did they discuss with Zelensky, or what? I mean, obviously they're going to give Zelensky support. That's what they were discussing. But was there anything discussed about a direct action to take against Trump? I mean, is this the forum where these 6 countries plus Ukraine could talk about how do we get rid of this guy, or what is happening to get rid of him? Because they probably know something.
Well, we've always talked about that it's going to be other countries that give us information, intel that helps us to expose the illegalities of the Trump administration. But when you talk about these groups of people, I don't know about just Zelensky, but yes, I see a group of people that have they've been working on this for a while now, at least since he was elected, if
Or
not
maybe if not before. Yeah.
and they're still going to help us. I've always thought that they maybe even had a connection with Kamala Harris, but that's total speculation. And but no, yeah, no, all these different countries are. I don't know if they're waiting to see if they'll just let it implode within our country, or if they're going to come back around and say, maybe we can give you a hand. Maybe we got some information.
No, because it's hurting all of their countries. It's screwing up the trade things. I mean, yeah, the European Union needed to, have their shit more together as far as, their own defenses and military. But still, the trade is that the world. That's how the world works. You mess that up.
I don't understand the 55% tariff for China, and then China just saying, and we'll take 10%. So I'm like, I don't know how it ever came to that.
Because China knows that the 55% is not something that they pay. It's something that the people buying the goods pay. So
Right.
if people don't buy their goods, they're like, okay, we got other trading partners. We sell all over the world. Who gives a crap whether the Americans get their next, Hello Kitty toothbrush or not? Nobody cares. They don't care. They don't care. China sells everything. But
Right.
when they're doing stuff, then they're like, okay, so we have to put on a tariff too. We'll do 10%. That's fine. How much do they buy from us? Most countries won't accept our food, our produce, our agriculture because we have such shitty standards to keep things safe and clean.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Right? Okay, so here's what we got here with the G7 guys talking about this stuff. Oh yeah, they were talking. Yes, they
Oh yeah, definitely.
they were discussing Dumpy really in depth, and several of the people coming to the G7 had individual appointments set up with Trump to have discussions, like the president from Mexico. So they were kind of like, well, now what are we going to do? Let's talk about Trump. So yeah, they were definitely talking about that. And they, all behind closed doors. I got the high priestess here, all behind closed doors, because it's very, very sensitive, right? In the past, they're talking about his deals with the tariffs, the Knight of Pentacles here, how he is just screwing up all the stuff with the tariffs. But there's going to be some action taken. I got the Ace of Wands. These countries are definitely going to be a part of some kind of action coming up here. And then we have the Queen of Cups. Now, the Queen of Cups in that arena, I'm not sure who that would be, unless, again, this could be Hillary Clinton, who has been Secretary of State and knows all these countries. She might not know the current leaders, but she knows the people who had the positions before them, and she knows probably all the people who work with them. So this could be Hillary Clinton coming out of the closet and woodwork and trying to help out with this stuff. Now, they don't want to be seen to be, conspiring against him. That's a bad look for them. But they do realize that he stole the election. it's clear to them that he did that. And now that he stole the elections, he's just messing up the world. He's screwing up the world. And they really hope that they can get all of their economies back on track once they get rid of him. But there's so many choices they have to make. They don't quite have in mind what their action is going to be, what the ultimate action is going to be. But they are going to take some action, I think, in the month of July. I think they're also going to do something in July, maybe August, but I think they're
And
going
do
to.
you think that when Trump was there, that during that somebody hinted to him or maybe to a group of people about the election? Maybe even comparing it to their elections in their country, and that Trump got word of that and thought, what the hell, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Possibly. So who are the countries that are there? Let me see which countries are there. Okay.
Well, Mexico we know is one, right?
Okay. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States. Hang on. It says additionally. The European Union is a non-enumerated member, so the representative from the European Union, and I think that that's that woman that God, what's her name? She has a really cool name, and she's a Libra. Okay, so she's not the Queen of Cups. Organized around blah 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 blah. Okay, yeah. Now Mexico isn't in there, but Mexico was there. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So why was Mexico there? I don't know, but Mexico was there.
Yeah,
Too.
yeah, the president from Mexico was there.
Mm-hmm.
I just get that there'd been not maybe directed towards him, but he could have picked up on this, that they were kind of discussing some things that made him feel super uncomfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
rather than face it or even directly try to answer anything, all of a sudden, I mean, his time there, and then when he decided to leave, it was almost like a light switch. He was just like, everything's fine. And then suddenly it wasn't. And then he had to go. He had to go right away and he makes up an excuse about Iran,
Yeah, but don't forget, he was embarrassed when Carney cut him off and stopped the press.
True, but that would just add add to it. I love it that happened, but
Yeah, but you're probably right. They probably did say something.
I'm pretty sure. Well, if they didn't say something to him, those countries are talking amongst themselves, and actually, I think this has been going on for a while. This is it's not like anybody's fooled, and even in one of the articles I had read where they said, what's wrong with the American people? They're, look what they voted in. Who are you going to blame for this? You're the one that voted him in. And I'm thinking, interesting that they should bring that up now, because now we know that he was not voted in. So what's going on there? But anyway, no, the G7 countries, they see a loose cannon in the United States, and they don't trust us anymore, and they don't look up to us anymore, and they do not like how this person is trying to turn us into an authoritarian country. So yeah, we've got help from other countries, and we've had it for a while.
And just today, Canada Europe Security and Defense Pact to be signed Monday in Brussels.
Wow.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney welcomes President of the European Commission, here she is, Ursula von der Leyen, to the G7 summit in Kananaskisa. I can't say it. It's something in Canada. A security and defense partnership pact Prime Minister Mark Carney will sign with European leaders in Brussels on Monday will be among the most wide-ranging agreements with a third country Europe has ever reached.
You know, now that you bring up these names and stuff, I don't personally have a lot of knowledge about the different things you're talking about in this Ursula person, but I see now when I was trying to figure out who is this woman, it's her. You
She's
know,
very
I don't
powerful.
know all the ins and outs of this stuff, but it's
It's,
her.
it's
She
her.
makes she makes a big difference with something. She makes, you know, she brings things together, but people are paying attention to her,
Yeah,
what she
she
says.
has been holding everybody together in the EU coalition
Wow.
since last year. She was brought in. I think she is the president or the head of it or whatever, and that's why she was there. But even before she was named that, she was really close to the guy that was the head of it, and she's been in it for a long time. She's very, very powerful.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I got. A very, very powerful woman that I was not familiar with until
and she's a Libra. She's a Libra.
until you just said her name, and I'm like, okay, that is who I saw on the cards. So anyway, watch out for what is going on in July, and you know,
Yeah.
Colleen's got a whole bunch of PoliTarologies coming up next month too, so we'll keep talking about this stuff. But yeah, July is going to be pivotal. It's going to tip the scales, and it's going to be very, very interesting, and it's going to be very hard on the Trump administration and the people that are working to make the changes. They're doing a lot of hard work, and they don't mind it at all.
Yeah.
They feel like they're doing work for the Constitution and for democracy and for the United States of America, and they are. They are. They're really going to help us. And these protests going on across the country, Yahoo! Thank you, people. Thank you. It's really what is the momentum behind that. The whole energy behind that is amazing.
Yeah. And they kept saying in the chat, let's make it 20 million next time. I bet it will be. I wish I could participate. I'm not able to participate physically, but I'm certainly supporting in every other way that I can think of. So, all right, everybody.
We're doing what we can right here, okay? We're doing what we
Oh,
can right here.
Innocent Potato said, Felon 34 thinks he's King George III and we ditched him, Mad King George. And I will just take this to shamelessly plug my video that I did all about Trump and Mad King George III, which I did quite a while ago. But if you go into my astrology playlist, you can find it. It's really interesting. They have a lot of similarities in their charts, a lot of similarities. All right, everybody. That's it for us. Cleo, thank you so much for staying on. I really appreciated all of everything because I just appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you so
everybody.
much.
We'll see you. I'll see you next week. So take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.